So thanks so much to everybody for joining us for today's session, uh, where we look at Villanova University's data journey from challenges identified to implementation. And we're really excited to present today's session in partnership with what we think is a great partner in this space, Helio Campus, who has some really powerful tools that can help institutions along their data journeys. So really excited to partner up with Helio Campus, and I'll give you a little more background on how that came to be as we set the table here from the Edge side. So as we get into today, I'd like to really just, for some of the folks who are a little less familiar with Edge, share a little bit of our story and why we're kind of pulling folks together for this session today. I'm Adam Scarzafava, AVP for Marketing and Communications here at Edge. So excited to welcome you and tell you a little bit about what we do. So we're a nonprofit member-based research and education network and a technology partner for the schools that we serve. We were formed in New Jersey by the President's Council for Higher Education. And I'll give you a little bit of the background and what we were developed to do. The mission has grown beyond just higher education to serve K-12, state and local governments, healthcare, really anybody with a nonprofit public serving mission. Edge is here to help with the effective use of technology. But we were founded by the higher education community. And we like to say we really are an organization of, by, and for those higher education institutions. Initially, we were formed around the turn of the century to build a network around the state of New Jersey. We've continued to own and operate that network. Many of the schools in New Jersey get their internet connectivity through us, as well as connections out to the cloud and internet too for research. And we're able to do some really cool things, linking up the network with research, with Edge Discovery, research and discovery framework that we've built on top of the network, as well as providing support for grants and grant management and things like that are so important to the way higher ed works and researches. Doing things like what we're doing today, events, networking, and community building is so important to share when things are working, when there are success stories and lessons that others can learn. We want to help to share those. So we do things like webinars like we're hosting today. We provide thought leadership and solution development. We've gone above and beyond just providing that network connectivity to really accelerate the way our members can deliver digitally transformed services, the way our members can really leverage cybersecurity, privacy, and compliance expertise through Edge and services that we can provide, like a virtual chief information security officer, provide cloud strategy and different ways that you can get to the cloud and make the most of those technologies and tools. And then educational technology and instruction. We help to scale our members and other higher ed institutions' abilities to transform courses for different learning modalities and different formats like online learning. So really help to accelerate some of those capabilities for the schools that we work with. And then to circle back, I skipped Edge Market, but I did that for a reason because I think that helps to frame up this piece of the conversation. And Edge Market is strategic informed consortium procurement arm of Edge. It's a purchasing cooperative, so we can go out to bid on behalf of the entire higher education and public sector community across the country in any state that accepts out-of-state co-ops, and make really vital technologies and solutions available to institutions all across America. One of the needs that we really saw emerge really as we were going through the pandemic timeframe back in early 2021 was this need to be smarter and to do better with data analytics. And so we really sought a number of partners to do that with. We put out an RFP for data warehouse and business intelligence platforms. And one of the awardees and I think a really industry leader in this space is Helio Campus. And we've been so excited to get partnered with Helio Campus. They've been a great partner for Edge to work with. From our nonprofit perspective. And we're really excited that Helio Campus has connected us today with Dr. Trina Das, the Assistant Vice Provost in the Office of Decision Support and Data Integrity at Villanova University. And Trina is going to share Villanova's story and how they've gone through their journey of doing more and doing better with data analytics. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And Trina, I'll invite you to share yours and get into the bulk of today's content.
Thanks, Adam. I am going to share my screen and How is it looking? Is it looking full screen on everyone's computer?
Yeah, looks great.
Awesome. Well, first of all, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining. I'm Trina Das. I lead the Office of Decision Support and Data Integrity at Villanova. I started at Villanova approximately 6 years ago and actually moved to the Philadelphia area around 2014. Prior to that, I was in Boston. I came to this country as a graduate student. I went to Clark University in Worcester, Massachusetts, where I got my doctoral degree from. And then I worked my professional career in higher ed, started at McGuire Associates, which is a higher education research and consulting firm based in Massachusetts. And I spent a decade of my career in financial aid leveraging model building. Started as an analyst, became a consultant along the way. So that's a little bit about myself. Now to the reason you guys have joined this afternoon, which is Villanova's data journey. A little bit about the university. I know many of you are local or regional to the university, but nonetheless, I thought maybe to start with a little bit of background here. We are located at Villanova, Pennsylvania, which is about 12 miles from Center City, Philadelphia. We are a high research activity doctoral institution for Carnegie classification. We have 6 colleges, including a law school, and approximately 11,000 students, undergraduate, graduate, and law. So now to the actual story, our data journey, and how did it all start? Well, there were multiple triggers for it. It started with frustration among business users, the college deans, our senior administrators, including our provost, who was previously the dean of the business school, in around getting accurate data in a timely fashion. The data that they needed for decision making arrived, but not always in a timely fashion. So there were frustration around that. Data stewards who are actually working with the data and pulling the information from the source systems had challenges and some level of frustration around the tools that were available. Some were old tools, decommissioned tools that were not well supported. And the newer tools were lacking training, resources, support, all sorts of things. So there were a lot of tools, not enough. None of them got real traction as it relates to usability and really be of best use for the data stewards. More recently, there was a heightened concern among our leadership around data accuracy, especially as it relates to the data that we report out to external agencies, including iPads, accreditation bodies, ranking agencies. Wanted to make sure that the data we report out are not only accurate, but vetted and peer-reviewed and all of that. And then prior to COVID, we finished our prior strategic plan and started working on our next, and we meaning the university, we started working on the next strategic plan, which is what has currently kicked off for us. And through that pre-planning process, the discussions that happened really focused on increased and enhanced use of technology and data and using data for decision making. And the extent of the discussion was so much that it actually ended up being a key foundational item in our current strategic plan. So there were triggers and pushes and awareness, if you will, from many directions. That led to a 5-phased strategy for, or Villanova's data strategy. It started with a planning and a discovery phase, which allowed for an assessment of our current data landscape at Villanova, what's working, what's not working, what are the challenges, all of that. That allowed for, really analyzing the information. We did some external scoping as well, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. But we analyzed all of those information and prioritized and created a roadmap as to what's most relevant and immediate need for us at the university. That led to the discussion for a data platform and governance initiative. And then eventually we know this is coming, or we have just about embarked on it, which is the whole concept of change management as it comes with the territory, if you will. Change management is not something that we have full-blown embarked upon, but it's about to start as we move forward to the platform rollout this summer. So obviously, I talked about the planning and the discovery. How did that start, and who and how and all of that associated with it? Well, back in spring of 2019, one day I got an email from our provost, who I was not reporting to at the time. I started at Villanova in the Office of Planning and Institutional Research, which reported to the provost, but I was not directly reporting to the provost at the time, which I do now. He emailed and he said he would like me to participate as a provost fellow in a 6-month exploratory project, partner with one of my colleagues in enrollment management to really do an internal scoping of the data landscape at Villanova as it relates to challenges, risks, opportunities, where can we go from here, kind of scenario, and come back with a recommendation for next steps in this process. And the goal, and this is a direct quote from the project assignment he handed to Kathy and I. Kathy was my partner in this project, is what you see in the second bullet, which is to provide a recommendation for developing the foundation for improved data infrastructure and governance, a culture of data-informed decision-making at Villanova, and an operational framework that would be best suited for the university. So that was our charge for the project. So right as we started on that exploratory project, we had 2 paths of exploration. One is our internal constituents. We wanted to talk to every business area, every college, to make sure the data people, not everybody in the colleges or the business areas, the data people who were whose day-to-day life revolves around data, to really understand what their key issues are, what challenges, what's working, what's not working. And then we also looked at our peer list, our peer institution, and other institutions beyond our peers, to come up with a list of institutions we can reach out to, whom we perceived to be ahead of us in this path, and who were doing things that we would like to do in the future in the data landscape. And so we made a list of about 15 institutions. I think we ultimately reached out to about 12 and talked to them this was more forward-looking, to figure out what Villanova can do for the future. So that was the two-forked strategy we had for this project to gain insights. The internal issues that we identified in talking with the various constituents within the university were the following, and many of them will not surprise you, and I'm sure you actually witnessed some of this, maybe not all, at your own institutions. Villanova is at the time, and still continues to be, and we are trying to move away from it slowly and gradually, which is our data operations are extremely decentralized, so siloed data management and reporting structure. We all have multiple data systems. These days, we have so many source systems feeding data. We had multiple reporting tools, which created challenges for which one to use, what's the training, who to ask, all of that situation. Data access and sharing challenges came with it. Not everybody got access to everything. Because of the decentralized nature of our operations, every business area handled their own data. And so the cross-pollination of data, as much as they may be connected or may be useful to be connected, was not exactly happening. And so that there were some access and sharing challenges there. Colleges didn't share data with each other, and that was that we have come a long way, and we are slowly and gradually moving away from. We did not and still do not have a university-wide data warehouse. We don't even have an IR data warehouse. So I told you guys, I started at the Office of Planning and Institutional Research at Villanova, and I quickly figured out, because of my background in higher ed in the past, I quickly figured out that the model that we have at Villanova is quite unique and different from what I or we in the higher education industry know of institutional research to be as a clearinghouse of data for the university. That was not true at Villanova, and hence the lack of data warehouse or an IR supported data warehouse. Which meant that our external reporting was also extremely decentralized. That left vulnerability and room for operational inefficiencies and inconsistencies. We had challenges replicating information because, if iPads data came in, it was getting, well, iPads there are many surveys, so there, in many ways at many institutions, things are happening at different places. But if I take the example of US News and World Report ranking survey that we do, there's a lot of places that we typically have to reach out to fulfill that survey. One that I think vast majority, if you have a warehouse, can be supported within one office, and then maybe a few things needs to be, for a few things you need to reach out. So anyway, though that you guys get the theme that we had an extremely decentralized operation, which created operational inefficiencies along the way. Difficulty combining data from different source systems. When you think of analytics and data analytics, you have to be able to merge information from different source systems. One of the examples that I often like to take is the whole student's life cycle. You start as an applicant and you want to see, okay, they graduated, they became an alum, are they donating? What's the profile of those donors look like vis-a-vis the ones who are not? All of that information, is there in the different systems. Is just, if we had to do such an analytical project, which in my role I have done in different ways depending on the need and the requests, took some time to first gather the data from different people who are, and keep in mind, I sat in the IR office, but I was still making data requests. And then when it came to me, I had to combine using a unique ID. So we wanted to find all of those things takes time. And by the time you actually complete the analysis, you worry that the need may have passed. I'm not saying that's always true, but there is a potential for that. So we wanted to figure out a system that could actually make this process more efficient and seamless, and so that we are spending more time on analyzing the information rather than collecting and merging. And those things, data cleanup is important. I don't want to undermine the importance, but it can be more systematic and technologically supported than manual work that used to be the norm here. Reports were mostly operational, less strategic, which obviously made things less insightful. Again, with our new provost, and he's no more new, he's been the provost since 2014, but when he became the provost, he's the first provost of the university. He is really data-minded, and he started asking questions, and that was a real push towards, really forcing many areas of the university to think in this direction. Lack of proper documentation and data definitions and data lineage. Again, I don't think Villanova is unique in this situation. I think we all struggle across the board there's so much data, having data definitions and data lineage, and capturing that is tough. But at the same time, not having anything is also scary and leaves room for a lot of vulnerability. So we are trying to address that as well through this process to the best of our capabilities, especially around process documentation and ensuring that if somebody left the university or moved on to a different role or retired, all the brain power and the knowledge did not depart with them. And then absence of single source of truth. Banner is our main source system, but Banner is also transactional. So that's really not our single source of truth. We need a place where there is data snapshots so that you can go and replicate information. Again, I want to put a qualifier here to say that when I say no no university-wide or IR data warehouse. That is true, but that doesn't mean that we did not have student data snapshots. We did, and student area is the only area where we actually had an ETL process set up in a legacy system for the data snapshots to be created, because we needed to do that for all of the external requirements to iPads and CDS and all of that. So that's the only area that has consistently captured data, not everything, only pieces of information that needed to be reported out. We don't have snapshots for faculty. We don't have snapshots for staff. So there's room for improvement there. So those were the issues. That then, obviously, all of that kind of told us the reasons why we needed a data strategy. So we formalized the data strategy, and these are the 7 pointers, if you will, that are our pillars of our data strategy. Recognize and maximize the use of institutional data as strategic university asset. I mean, of course, that right now, with the fact that it is a foundational item in our next strategic plan, this is a no-brainer. We have this jives absolutely well with it. That's our number 1. Oops, excuse me, I'm sorry. Lay the foundation for creating an improved and sustainable data infrastructure. We do see the need for a central data environment to reduce our vulnerabilities and improve our operational inefficiencies and focus more on analytics. So that's in the works. Ensure accuracy and accountability for data for internal and external reporting. That's kind of tied to the system or the platform we are trying to develop, but that will allow for the accuracy and accountability. Be able to bring together data source from disparate sources that we just talked about. Again, a more, a solid data platform, analytics and platform will allow us to be able to do that more seamlessly and more efficiently than otherwise. Foster a culture of data sharing and data informed decision making. We have come a long way with this in the past couple of years since our office came into being. But we have more work to do, and this platform will, again, this whole initiative, this data strategy will allow for even more sharing and making sure that every decision that the university makes, it is based on information and not anecdotes. Improvement of the data management and reporting and analytics platform. This is more on the operational side. What we are building, we wanted to make sure that it's not only serving one purpose, but also multiple purpose. So not only just for analytics, but it will allow for some operational needs as well for some of our operational data stewards who needs data, granular data, than just the broader view of things. And then create an environment to promote succession planning for business units, which is, again, something I touched upon, which is, for a scale and the size of the university we are, and any data people leaving with knowledge who have been with the university for a really long time without any documentation, without any training manual, without any data definitions, it really does pose a risk and missed opportunity for the university to think about that and create that succession planning and really be on top of things. So that is also part of our data strategy. So as part of, at the end of the exploratory project that we worked on, that we started doing early spring of 2019 and completed in August of 2020, so right before the fall term started, 2019, excuse me, it took us about 8 months. We proposed 3 key initiatives at the end of that, in that recommendation. The first one was a decision on a comprehensive data management and analytics platform that would include a data warehouse or a data lake, an ETL layer where all the magic happens, the transformation, the curation of the data, and then an analytics and data visualization tool for our consumers of the information. We wanted to establish a university-wide data governance framework. We really didn't have anything. All universities have data policies coming out of our university IT, but it was not organized. It was not. We needed to really reconceptualize the data governance framework. So that was part of the recommendation. Establish a new department or organization under the Office of the Provost to really handle the above two initiatives and really bring a more typical structure, if you will, to the university's data management that is true at most other universities by way of IR, then that was not quite present at Villanova. So that was our recommendation, the three recommendation out of that project. So then came the implementation of the data strategy, and the first one obviously makes sense, which is the establishment of the Office of the Decision Support and Data Integrity. This is the office that we recommended should handle the two other initiatives that I just shared in the previous slide. The office was charged with advancing a culture of data sharing, data stewardship, and data-informed decision-making. This came into being in fall of 2019. In September 2019, pretty much a month after the report was submitted and shared with the President's Cabinet. I'm very fortunate to lead this office now, and we've done a lot of things since. The very first thing that we did, I started the office, by the way, with myself and one other team member who came from our registrar's office and is one of our in-house experts in student data. She's been with the university more than a decade. She does all sorts of external reporting. She builds the fact book. So she was a clear choice to move to this department. So the two of us, we put together an RFP for a comprehensive data management and analytic solution, which was sent out to 5 vendors in December of 2019. We had a team of 8 to evaluate the proposals, and we brought in colleagues from different areas of the university to evaluate the platforms with us. The evaluation was completed by May 2020. Now that might give you a pause because COVID kind of made things all go in many different directions in the wrong way in March of 2020. Anyway, the contract was not awarded until July of 2021. So we took a year pause, and so did many other universities for many reasons due to budget restrictions as it relates to COVID. So it so happened, a little bit of a backstory here, why May 2020 and then July 2021. We started, the proposals came in by end of January 2020. We gave ourselves a month to look at all of the proposals, make a decision on who we wanted to invite to campus for an on-campus demo. We made that decision. We identified 4 of the 5. I mean, they were pretty close. So we decided, okay, let's just bring 4 of them in. And we did. We invited all of them. The dates were set. All of the planning was done. And March 10th, I still remember the date, March 10th was our first demo. And we had that demo. And that was the day we were starting, like that was the week we started hearing about COVID and its impact or what it's starting to do. It really didn't understand the scope, or nobody did, I don't think. But so we did have an in-person meeting. We decided to go forward with that. I remember doing elbow bumps with people who were visiting us rather than shaking their hands because, but nobody was still wearing masks. So it was that early. And then that was March 10th. We had a good demo. We had 30 people attending that demo around from different offices around campus. And then March 14th, everything closed. And everything went, not closed, but closed, and then we went virtual. So that was really a kind of a shock to the system for a new office like ours, for the initiative that was going on with full force. So I reached out to Pat, our provost, and I asked him, I said, what do we do? What would you want us to do? Do we continue? Do we postpone? Do we, what do we do? And we collectively decided that because there is such a momentum and we've already had one of the vendors, let's complete the process. And then obviously we will have to wait and evaluate where things are going. So we did go through all of the evaluations. We moved the rest of the 3 demos virtual. There was a little bit of a concern as to the engagement on the part of 30 participants from our end, plus, the folks from, and then, Zoom was not so much part of our lives as it is today. So we were a little bit nervous, but it all worked out in the end. And, kudos to all of those vendor partners whom we evaluated, and an excellent job they did. We made the decision. of the 4, we chose our top 2, decided to communicate that with them, and made left also let the other 2 vendors know that they would not be under our consideration for, so that's when everything came to a stop. And for me, at leading this office, it was kind of a rude reality, if you will. I mean, you start an office, you have a plan, and then suddenly all of this happened. Not your fault, not anybody's fault, but this is happening. So our provost said, well, we cannot embark on the platform project, but I want you to think of something to keep moving the mission of the university. Now, remember, the mission is advancing a culture of data sharing, data stewardship, and data-informed decision-making. So I kept thinking, okay, what can I do? What can be done? It has to be with no investment. So Sarah was getting ready to, she always did the fact book. Our fact book, it was used to be pages and pages and pages of PDF, and it always sat in a small corner of our website. Hardly anybody knew about it, but it's a very rich source of data. So we decided that we'll just convert them into interactive dashboards. Part of me said, this would be our way to tell our internal constituents that this is a glimpse to what's to come in the future. This is a glimpse to how easily we can make data available to you. And so easily you can interact with it and compare information. And something about visual display of information is always more attractive than otherwise. So we thought it was a good plan. I communicated that with our provost, and his first, this is very funny, it almost validated what I always knew to be true, but I didn't realize how deep it was. I told him, I remember saying, Pat, I'm gonna convert our fact book into interactive dashboards, and I think that would be a great way for data sharing, and put it on our website, and it's already publicly available data. And he looked at me and said, Trina, what's fact book? That was the moment I knew, if our provost has not been directed yet to a resource like a fact book, I knew we can gain a lot of traction with the data that we're going to present. So that's what we did. We spent all of that summer developing Tableau dashboards that I already self-trained myself during my time here at Villanova. So I had a creator license. I converted all of our factbook information into dashboards. Then we had to put it on the website. So there comes the challenge, right? Tableau server is not what we had. And that brings in a whole lot of layer of complication. Not that I did not think about that. So I was like, okay, how are we going to do this? So we leveraged Tableau Public, but Tableau Public is a public server. So we had some concerns about, obviously data security, which is so important. So we worked with our information security office. I directly reached out to our rep in Tableau and asked them, okay, how would they recommend, protecting our very sensitive data? So we came up with a plan. We de-identified, we summarized all of that, but we put in a lot of work for a staff of 2 in that summer. And I wanted this to go live when we typically fact books are released, which is in the fall. And we did that. We published our fact book in the fall, in fall 2020. We did a little bit of, we wanted to make sure this time it doesn't go unnoticed in one part of our website. So we worked with our Office of Communications to add it to our newsletter so that people are informed. I presented it to Pat, our provost, and he liked it so much that he actually brought it to his leadership team, his Dean's Council. I think I presented to the Dean's Council as well. He then brought it to the board. He presented it to the Board of Trustees, which is such a validation of the use of that information and how important that is, and also created a path for ensuring that we will have funding for what's to come in the future. So that's one of the things that we did, and I think we stayed true to advancing the culture of data sharing and data informed decision making. I mean, since then, have heard from so many parts of the university how much these dashboards, which are on my website, it gets leveraged and they use it. And if we are a little bit late to update anything, we get questions. When is this going to be updated? So it's a really good feedback and one that gives me a lot of encouragement for what's to come in the future. We also started the for the first of the two governance committees. The framework of the governance committee was already conceptualized when Kathy and I did the project, the Exploratory Project, and we presented the framework. But the idea was that we were going to start the data platform project and the data governance initiative all together, and the implementation and the policies will be worked on side by side. Of course, that was not going to happen. And so we decided might as well start the discussion of the policies and see how far we go with it and how that all works out. I mean, should work out, like it, it's looking forward, right? And in retrospect, I will tell you that the way it worked out now is actually better, that we are actually in the final stages of, or final draft stages of our 3 policies that we have worked on since November of 2020. We met every month with the exception of few. And we have 3 draft policies getting ready to be sent to the president's cabinet for approval, which will be then ready for right before our rollout this summer of the platform, which and of course we are going to obviously leverage these policies for a lot of data access, data sharing, all of the things, who gets to see what, and all of that. And then the second one is slated for the Data Stewards Committee is slated to be starting in spring of 2022, which is now. And actually our first meeting is end of this month. All right, so through this process, I think my take on what are the 3 key things that led to a successful data strategy, and I say successful with an asterisk, because it will be successful once we have rolled out the data platform. It's a few months away. It's well underway. I have no doubt it will be, but so that's why I didn't put the asterisk there, but I decided to say it. 3 things: executive sponsorship and support. And now I do think I'm a little bit lucky here, or we are a little bit lucky at Villanova, in that the way it all came together, the strategic planning process, our leadership feeling like they're not getting information and they want that information. So it's even without us saying wouldn't have worked. It had to come. They had to be convinced, and they were convinced along with us. And so I don't think I had to do a huge sell to our executive leadership to make an investment or move in this direction. So, but it is key. Without this, it's very hard to move the needle, because the funding decisions and the buy-ins are all there. We also, I would highly encourage engaging key campus leaders, even if they are not in the immediate scope of the platform, or they're not from a student area or faculty area, or that you are deciding to, address first, not to keep them out of the mix. Please, I would encourage you to engage everybody, finance, HR, just so that they can see that they also have data. Their data is also very relevant for them, and also to make connections with students and faculty and staff. So it's very important to engage these other divisions and see where they stand. Our advancement office is very interested, and they do a great job in with their data, but that connection is still always a challenge. So engaging different campus leaders throughout the process, not just from the start of implementation, but from the very start. So we included them at the time of evaluation, made sure that they can see themselves in this as part of this platform in the future, because what we are trying to build here is a university central data repository. It's the university data repository. It's not just a student data repository or a provost area data repository. It is a university data repository. And of course, the importance of data governance is so key to go with a technology platform and a technology solution. And again, every institution has data policies. It just needs to be formalized and put in a framework and include more people and operationalize them otherwise. So we still have to operationalize this, but we have the policies and we have the thinking in place right now. I told you that we chose two vendors as the top contenders, and one of them was Helio Campus. And we ultimately decided to move forward with them and partner with them. And the three reasons we decided to do that are these. And these were and it was pretty much broadly shared sentiment, if you will, across our university community, who vetted the platforms and gave their feedback. First and foremost is their expertise and their sole focus and experience in higher education. So key. We had other vendors who had great technology, but they were also working in many industries, and higher education was one of them. And so their footprint and their depth of knowledge in higher education was lacking. And we felt that we had to do, if we engaged with them, we will have to do a lot of training of understanding higher education terminologies, our project goals, why do we do, what do we do? What's iPad's race ethnicity? I mean, that just those kind of things, like something that we didn't have to explain to Helio Campus, but we would have had to with the other vendors whose scope was not just higher education. Their approach was much more comprehensive and than other vendors as well. So what I mean by that is the other vendors, they told us that they will set up the whole environment for us. So the data lake, the ETL layer, the Tableau environment, they'll set up all of that for us. And then they'll build us one of the student data models. And that could be admissions, that could be course registration. Sometimes some of them, not some, I think one said one, the other one said two. But that's just building one or two wouldn't have been enough. What Helio Campus said, they're going to do the entire student portfolio. That was very attractive because that's a huge, tremendous jumpstart. The admissions, financial aid, course registrations, student outcomes, that is a full suite of things. And student is the vast amount of data a university has and leverages. So again, we know that we have to build a lot more beyond this, but to get the whole idea is to get that jump start, because I know if we had to do this internally, it would take us years, and with the resources that I know is available for these kind of efforts. Despite the leadership push and everything, I don't think people understand how complicated and the scale of such kind of work. And then the other thing, which is very important to me, continued analytics and consulting support beyond the implementation phase. I mean, the fact that they will hang out, they will not just complete the implementation and say, okay, we're done. No, they're going to stay. We will have continued consulting support. Of course, the number of hours is going to reduce. That makes sense, but they will be there for us to be able to ask questions while we are still new with the system. They will be there to support building data models if that's our need, or support us in an analytical project if that's our need. The fact that they will be around for us to support us is a huge add and a huge benefit that we could not ignore, and one that we did not see very prevalent among the other vendors that we evaluated. Maybe one of them were there, but that's about it. So journey to date and where we are now. I talked about pre-contract signing. This is post-contract signing. So contract was signed July 2021. The implementation started right after Labor Day, and the first month was predominantly focused on data access, courtesy accounts, URLs set up, nightly refresh set up, all of the IT side of the things. And then we had then started the data model builds, and we had quite a few discovery meetings with the individual business areas. So we had with admissions, with our registrar's office, with our financial aid, really to kind of, for Helio Campus to really understand what Villanova's processes are, what is important to us, what are custom fields we have that we would like to leverage, data validation expectations, timelines, all of that. Then came data validation. We started that mid-October, more in a rolling fashion, and it's still continuing. We are almost at the tail end of it, and we'll move to dashboard validation soon. So that's where we are right now. And here brings me to my last slide, which is the takeaways and lessons learned as we have gone through this process in the past 2 years. I touched upon all of this in different ways, but I'm just going to kind of summarize and say buy-in is key. And whether it's buy-in for, engaging your executive leadership, or it is engaging key campus leaders, just having the right people in the conversation from the very beginning and make sure that they're engaged, they see the value and the potential and importance of such an initiative is so key for it to move forward and be successful. And along the way, it creates champions for the initiative. For us, it's our career services office who work with student data, but their data is not in the current scope, but that's what we have lined up right after implementation. And we fully expect them to work, go with us almost like a roadshow within the university to really talk about how much they're gaining from from an analytics initiative like this for their office and how that's serving them well. Importance of flexibility. No data project will be perfect. The devil is always in the details, whether you're doing an analysis or you're setting up a data platform. So please do expect to encounter that your expectations are going to be not aligned exactly the way you thought it is going to be. There will be misalignment. I think the key is to be flexible, and that's true for both for the university side both for folks on the university side and on the vendor side, because at the end of the day, we both want this project to be successful, and whatever is the middle ground or is the ground to ensure that success is key to communicate and have that mutual understanding. So please, this kind of things always need flexibility. We've been fortunate with Helio Campus. I asked way too many questions before we signed the contract. So I knew what we were getting into, yet there were a few instances where I was surprised, but we adapted, and kudos to them that they navigated with us and were extremely flexible. So we are very thankful for that. And then analytics platform initiatives are massive undertakings. I think we talked about it, you guys know it. And we knew going into this that we don't have internal resources to support such an initiative. I mean, I almost know that if we decided to do this in-house, some other priority will take precedence and this will take a back seat, because until a platform is delivered, you don't know how valuable it is. And so it is easy to sidetrack that without knowing what's to come. That's why we wanted to make sure that we partner with an external vendor who can jumpstart the initiative. We get people hooked to the value proposition, the importance and the potential of a platform like this, and the value add it brings to the university's decision-making process. And then, we still have lots to build beyond what our initial implementation scope is. And we can address those gradually with internal training, with internal resources that we can build upon. But that initial jumpstart had to be done quickly and successfully without any derailments. So that's where I'm going to stop. Thank you so much again for listening. I hope this was useful, and I'm happy to take questions.
Well, thanks so much, Trina. That was a great kind of rundown of the journey and how you've gotten to where you are today in building this initiative. We definitely have a few questions that have come through, so I'll start with one that I saw privately through the Q&A panel. Did you consider building an analytics platform yourselves? And if so, why did you decide not to?
Great question. I think I kind of touched upon in the last point. When we embarked on this exploratory phase, we knew that our university IT was under-resourced. And despite that, they did share interest in building that. And we actually asked them to really share their plan with us to how they're going to go about doing it, what they think, almost like an internal vendor, if you will. We went through that process because they did share their interest of wanting to do this in-house. And that would have been cheaper for sure, but cheaper is not always the answer. And the response that we got, and it was a pretty extensive response they provided, didn't quite hold or give the people who were evaluating the process the confidence that we will be able to successfully deliver this in the time frame. And we're already delayed because of COVID.
Right.
But in the time frame that we wanted this moving. Because keep in mind, this is part of our strategic plan. Now, of course, strategic plans are 10 years, but I don't think people are waiting 10 years for data. So we needed this to be kind of, that's why it's a foundational element. It's not the strategic goal. So yes, we explored that path. It would have been nice if we had dedicated resources for that project, but what was presented to us was resources who were well positioned to work on it, but they had other duties that they had to fulfill as well, and we worried about the derailment of initiatives.
Sure, makes sense. Another one that we had come through, the conversion of the fact book to a dashboard sounds like an early win. Were there any other early wins of impact that helped to sell the process on campus?
All of this happened in a very, very short period of time. It seems a long time, especially because everybody is so tired of COVID. But, when you think of data and what you need to do, it was not a whole lot of time. And I want to qualify this. So when I moved to this department from my prior department, and then Sarah, who was my sole team member until December of 2021, we did hire another person recently. She moved with her responsibility. So we had a full job going while we were trying to kind of push forward this effort. The only other new thing, the only other movement in this direction was the start of the governance work, which is new to the university. And then there was another one, which I forgot to mention, which is actually, I mentioned it, but not exactly in the way that it is actually at work. So we are trying to make our office more centralized in how we report data, how we manage data. And part of that process is all of our reporting, especially all of the data we send out to so many external agencies. Right now, it is extremely decentralized. And our first step towards that process was to kind of figure out who is reporting what are they using, which data banner table they're using, what kind of information. So working with them to figure out what their processes are, starting to create a central data repository of sorts. It's not data lake. It's just like data that extracts that they have used to report data. We are creating in our shared drive, we are creating like a repository of sorts, so that if ever we have to go and replicate an information, we've started doing that. So it might not mean very much for the person who asked the question, but on Villanova's side, it was a big step in the right direction, because the information was really kind of all over the place.
No, that makes sense. Another one we had, does your institution have an Office of Institutional Effectiveness Planning and Research that does any data analytics themselves, or does Helio Campus do that for you? So I guess where's the division of responsibility kind of, and then attached to that, what about data security, that you're putting all this information into an outside platform like Helio?
Yeah. So two-part question, actually. The first question is when my office came into being, remember I was in the Office of Planning and Institutional Research. There has to be some restructuring, and we had some restructuring. So my office is the analytics wing of the university. We are the data office, managing all data reporting and analytics, or at least that's the goal. We are doing some. We are moving towards centralizing a lot. It's a work in progress. And then we also, the Planning and Institutional Research then became Office of Strategic Planning and Institutional Effectiveness, and their scope is around the survey research. My office do not do any internal surveys. That is part of the institutional effectiveness. They do assessment. They do all of the middle states accreditation stuff, and they also do course evaluation. That's their scope. So if you talk about quote unquote data analytics, that's a part of my office. So I do a lot of benchmarking. I do all of the ranking analysis. I do faculty compensation studies. I do financial aid leveraging. So there is a lot that's happening in my office as far as analytics projects go.
Got it.
And then the second part of the question was data security to an external platform. Yes, and our Information Security Office is extremely stringent on that. So our chief security officer was on our evaluation team. We purposely had her be part of that evaluation process, just so that we didn't want to go all the way through the process to say, ouch, this is not going to work. So we wanted her to evaluate the security side of things and ask questions and vet what needed to be vetted from the very beginning. And Helio Campus, and I can only speak for them because they got way more questions than any other vendors because they were the final two. They did an amazing job in presenting information about how they ensure the security of their clients' data, which was satisfactory. I cannot speak intelligently about this because I'm not a security official, but I know it was to the satisfaction of our Information Security Office and also our general counsel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, from the edge perspective, that's part of our consideration too when we're going out to RFP on behalf of the whole consortium, right? We're always cognizant of security concerns and data privacy concerns and that kind of thing, and choosing and awarding a vendor through our RFPs. So
I will also add right now the way, so we are going through data validation. So we do have a URL of the data Tableau server set up, and nobody can access that without the VPN that is set up. So the access to that server is through our VPN network. Without that, we can, even the courtesy accounts that the Helio Campus people have, they had to have that courtesy account to be getting into Villanova network. So again, a non-secure information security person speaking about this, but to me, those are all the security levers that's been put in place.
Got it. Yep, that makes sense internally too. So then, we had two questions that were kind of along similar lines, so I'll try and combine them as we're getting to the end of this session here. So one was, what services and infrastructure is Helio Campus providing? And I think I'll tie that in with what tools are Helio Campus leaving you with to continue to maintain your models here? Will you continue to rely on them to make enhancements, or does your team have the skills to maintain and create new models and processes?
Yeah, great question. And I'm going to take the second one first, I think. So the platform includes a data lake environment, which is powered by Amazon Redshift. There is going to be an ETL layer, which is essentially SQL coding, but this is the proprietary part of Helio Campus. And then we have the Tableau server. Now, so long as we are going to have, and this was a consideration, so a great question actually, and this was a big consideration for us as we vetted the contract, and even when I spoke with other institutions who have been clients of Helio Campus even prior to us contracting with them, this was a question I asked them, like, what are we going to have? What's going to happen if the university decided to move in another direction X number of years down the road? The answer to that is you need to have a strategy. It's not the data infrastructure and the data platform is not something that you start and then it is going to be good forever. No. I think it is something that you have to kind of think about it and reevaluate and what makes sense, because technology is changing very fast. Needs are changing very fast. So we were going to be trained in Amazon Redshift environment, which is where all the data models are going to be residing. There is going to be dedicated Tableau training. Do I need a person to build future data model? Yes, and that was part of the plan. So for us to be independent and not be heavily reliant on Helio Campus post implementation, we needed to make sure that we have enough staffing to do that. Now they're giving us a significant jump start, but beyond that, whatever we needed to build over a span of 2 or 3 years, or continuing build, depending on what the need of the university is, we do need skilled people, and the skills. I actually went all the way to ask Helio Campus, what kind of skill set should I hire? And they were they helped us figure that out as well. If one of the things that I don't think there is ever a right or a wrong answer for this is, what happens if you decide not to engage with them after X number of years? I think you should think about that probably 2-3 years in advance of doing it, so that you can set yourself up and have a smooth transition plan. Because once you get so many people around campus hook to a certain way of doing things. You cannot just sever ties like that, because if the ETL layer is just their proprietary coding is what is, you know, their selling point, and that's why they have the business they have. If that's not how you want to keep yourself tied to a organization, you should have a backup plan for the future. But I asked myself that question, and I posed that question to my leadership: is why is that something so important to think? We are tied to so many vendors. We are on a day-to-day basis. We have banners since early 1990s. We didn't think of severing our relationship with them. So why are we thinking? I mean, you of course have to think about, okay, what happens if something, and sorry to the Helio Campus colleagues here, I'm not at all proposing this is going to happen, but just for the sake of argument, what if they decided they're not going to be a company anymore? Yes, you have to think about those things, and you should think about those things. But short of that, I really don't see a reason. If things are working, there is no reason to not stay attached to a vendor who has, to date, at least for us, delivered what they said they would deliver.
Right. No, well, that's great. Thanks so much for answering all these questions. I think we're over time now, but we did have a lot of great questions that kind of pushed us there. So that was that's a good reason to go a couple minutes over. Thanks again so much, Trina, for spending your time with us today and walking us through that journey. Thanks again to everybody who joined us for spending part of your Tuesday afternoon with us. As we break, I'll just remind everybody that part of EDGE's kind of founding mission is to help the higher ed community do these things and build capabilities like data analytics, like the process that Villanova's gone through. And if you feel like you need help jumpstarting that process at your own campus and you're not really sure where to start, EDGE can really help you to accelerate some of those programs, both building sort of your data definitions, your data governance structure, building those committees, kicking off this process. EDGE has some capabilities and some real expertise to help you do that as well. So we're always here to help as a nonprofit partner. The folks from Helio Campus are always a big help, and you can bounce questions off them. And we'll share contact information of everybody that was on the call today as well, if you want to jump in and ask Trina any questions. And just a reminder again that we recorded the session, so we'll send that link out. And we'll make sure to follow up with everybody. So thanks so much, everybody spending your time with us. And Trina, thanks again. This was great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a great afternoon, everybody. Thanks.
Bye-bye.